Howdy Science 8 class, Section 4. Here is your homework for Tuesday. That'd be tomorrow. Today is day 1, which means tonight you get some exciting graphing homework. I'd like you guys to do 2 graphs for homework tonight. The first one I'm going to do for you and show you how to do it on Google Docs, so therefore there should be really no excuse why you can't do the same thing. And the second one I want you to do. So let's start with this first one. And the first one is this little storyline about a research scientist who wanted to see what effect a new formulation of sunblock had on preventing UVA and UVB, which are the damaging forms of radiation that changes the DNA in your cell and causes melanoma cells to form, which is basically skin cancer. And some of those forms can be quite deadly. So what he did is he used different concentrations of this new sunblock, and it was measured in percent, so this group didn't get any. It went up to 8.4%. And then what he measured was how many cancer cells were growing in the petri dish, represented by my great little graphic there. And what I'd like you to do is to graph it, as I said. And the first thing you have to think about is which is the independent, which is the dependent variable. And the independent variable, as you recall, is the one that you kind of have control over, if you want to use that term, or manipulate. It's the one that you kind of set up beforehand. In this case, the research scientist knew that he was going to use none here, 0%. 1.2, 2.4, etc. This is a known kind of quantity, so that's your independent. And the kind of the data you're collecting, or what effect the sunblock has on this other variable, would make it the dependent variable. So that means that this goes on the x, this goes on the y. Now what I do have for you is set up on a Google Doc already, and I'll probably send you this I'll share it to you, is the same information right here. And I just put an x there and a y there, not that you really have to. And the first thing you're going to do is you're going to highlight your data. And so if I highlight both columns here, so from the 0 down to the 4 here, and I'm going to then make a graph with it. Now one thing about both Excel and Google Docs here is that the first column left always goes and ends up on the X horizontal component, and the one on the Y ends up on the vertical. So that works out well. That's what we want right now. So if I hit Insert Chart, which remember means we're putting a graph together, I click that, and it brings up some options. Now they show 4 here, but these aren't any of what we want. I mean, they look nice and cool and like pretty spiffy, very patriotic, red, white, and blue, but what we want is a line graph basically, and that's where the scatter graph comes in. So it's x versus y component, because these line graphs will just give you 2 lines, which is not what we want. So back to the scatter graph. I click on that, that's what I want, so that's kind of a line, but we haven't connected them yet. And we're not done, because we still need to label these things, not to mention label the entire graph. So we hit Customize, and the first thing we can do is let's talk about the title. So the title would be the effect of sunblock concentration on cancer cells. Close enough. And I'll go down to the next point, which is the legend. And the legend would be, like we had 2 lines, like what are they? But we only have 1 line, so we don't have to worry about that. So I'll click None. When I click None, notice that disappeared. Okay. The next thing is we need to label the axes. And so right now we have the vertical axis to label. Remember, that was the dependent variable. In this case would be the number, I'll just abbreviate, of cancer cells. Flows, whatever. And on the horizontal axis, we put down the concentration. So here's going to be the concentration of sunblock. Assuming I didn't spell that. Yeah, it's okay. And we're there. Now, there's really not too much we have to do about the scales. They all look pretty reasonable. We're using a significant amount of the graph paper. And you can play around with colors and all kinds of cool things like that if you want, red, green, and sizes and things, but green's my favorite color. And you're pretty much done. And now I'm going to put in here Insert. And now I have my graph here already made. I believe you can actually copy and paste this graph and other things so that you can play around with that. Now, this will be a homework where you're going to do 2 of these. And what you could do is share this with me, and I can just kind of view it online. This is more about you guys getting better at this, and you're not going to get better at this unless you practice on these things. So again, the first one should look just like this because we're all using the same data. And the second one, it's up to you to finish it up. But again, I want you to do it on Google Docs. So hopefully everybody will turn in their homework tomorrow. And I'll see you in class mañana.